So what I was, discussing that there are almost about 4 learning outcomes in each unit. So far we have conducted 2 learning outcomes in 2 sessions. The third session is on implementing a database, and apart from the implementing a database, previously we had an introduction about the database, relational databases, some normal forms, basic concepts, and there was another concept of the SQL, structured query languages. Yeah. So there was a slide that discussed structured query languages, and perhaps you know a little bit more about the structured query languages, but let me give you an introduction uh, and a demonstration for the SQL. So when you go to SQL, so structured query language online is available for you into this W3 school. So what we will be doing, we will be executing some SQL queries online so that you should be able to familiar that how the SQL works. So in previous slides, in lecture 2, yeah, in session 2, there was a topic on structured query languages. Maybe I should gonna show you here. In the learning outcome 2, the indicative content said, in the database designing, you should be able to understand the database table, creating database indexes, constants, designing SQL queries. Yeah, and forms, macros, these were just the definitions. So SQL queries are normally structured queries languages. They help the users, the database administrators, to pick the data from the database. For example, there is a table of the customers. If we want to see, let's say these are the keywords, select is a keyword, asterisk means all records from customers tables. Then once you run, then what you get the customer ID, customer name, and contact name, address, city, postcode, country, these things. Yeah.
Yes, no problem, it's fine.
Okay, yeah. So now, if you could have a look that apart from these definitions, the third learning outcome, which is the today's session, is based on implementing a database. Construct a complex database to meet the design brief. So its indicative contents are advanced structured query languages, user actions, implementing data features like database security, database links, user interface, testing plans, database components, extreme data, and error handling. So let me go through superficially in the first go that advanced SQL queries. So for example, there are certain commands: select asterisk from particular table, select random, for example, if I say select customer ID from customers table. So if you look that, it is only showing the customer ID here. So remember in your mind that your learning outcomes is indicating you to understand the SQL query language and types of the query languages at the simple level as well as on the advanced level. So learning outcome 3 is based on advanced queries, yeah, like SQL union, SQL all, SQL inline view. So these are definitely you need to practice with. So I will leave this practice with you in after the class. You can do this practice online. If you want to create like if you want to install the Oracle in your computer, then you should also be able to do. But the easiest way will be to do the SQL queries online on the W3 school. So what is the target? Target is to do the practice and to understand that these advanced queries as well as the basic queries. And then the next topic of this indicative content is, let me go to the next, is the security. Yeah. So for a minute, until I finish the other slides. So what is the target? You have to understand the queries, that how the queries work and how you get your desired results from the database, and how you can manipulate the database using the structured query language. SQL is the language that is used to connect from the user view on the middle level using the the middle tier of the database, which will help you to access the database, insert the database, update the database. That we have already studied the concepts, that what are the levels of the database and how they are connected, how they are communicated, how they give the user the interface to be accessed. So that's about the SQL. So now the next topic after the SQL queries is security. Database security refers to the collective measures used to protect and secure a database or database management system from illegitimate use and malicious threats. For example, if you have a database, then obviously that database should be secured. Yeah. If that is not that much secure, then obviously you are compromised, your data is compromised. So that particular database should provide you the features to make it secure. So database security covers and enforces security on all aspects of the components of the database, which can be the data stored in the database. The database server itself should be secure. The database management system itself should be secure. And database workflow applications. For example, if you are sending and receiving the data over the network, and the data is fetched from the database to the user. For example, if your database server is in USA and you are accessing here, then the workflow applications should also be secure. Otherwise, your data can be compromised. So the database security is generally a plan implemented, maintained by database administrator. It is the role of the database administrator to make it sure that it is secure. So for example, there shouldn't be any unauthorized access to the database. Number 1 point. Yeah. Number 2, there should be load stress capacity testing for a database to ensure that it does not crash in the distributed denial of service attack. So first, database security concern is that nobody should access it without the authorization. Second is that there shouldn't be a loop where denial of service. Perhaps you might have heard that what is DDoS. The hackers, when the hackers want to hack the website, they sometimes they don't hack, but what they do, they give number of requests in number of thousands, and too many requests, which server, they down the server, they slow down the server, and we assume that okay, the site has been hacked, it has been down, but that doesn't becomes down, but it crashes into at certain number of requests. So when the actual server denies, then the DDoS attack occurs. Then physical security of the database should be there. Reviewing existing system for any unknown vulnerabilities, defining and implementing roadmap plan to mitigate them. So for example, even if you want to migrate the database or in any kind of transfer of the data, it shouldn't be compromised. That is the main responsibility of the database administrator. So how you can implement it? You can implement the database security through some of the features provided, like digital certificates. Perhaps if you have a look on the any secure website which require the authentication like the passwords, so these are the governed by the certificates. So this is a kind of SSL secure certificate, yeah, SSL secure circuit layer. So this is one of the option that you can implement. And other options can be encryption. Encryption is a technique which encrypts your message. For example, if you are sending a message, let's say Faisal, and if I ask you to add 2 characters into the every character of Faisal name, then let's say FGH, then what you need to send, that instead of F, you will send H, and instead of I, you would send K, and instead of Z, for example, perhaps you might add another, let's say A and B. So in this way, whenever you send the encrypted message, then at the other end, the hacker shouldn't be able to understand what the data is. Third one is firewalls. You provide the firewalls to your database system. You could create the proxy servers that are the sheets rockets between the client computers and inside the private network. When you create a proxy server, it creates a secure connection. At the moment, we are using the internet that's a totally private, and it travels through the World Wide Web. But when you are creating the proxy server, then it only creates the connection between 2 particular IP addresses. And then secure circuit layer, that's the SSL, and secure hypertext transfer protocol that I shown you, that in the web browser you should be able to see here that it is HTTPS. So hypertext transport protocol. So these are some features that you can use to secure your database, and obviously this is the concern of the database management system company. They have to make it secure. You cannot make it secure by yourself more, but you can utilize the security features into your database by encrypting or any other features. Yeah. Now there are 2 topics. One is the LAMP and another one is the WAMP. WAMP is Windows. Hello.
Mr. Subra.
Yeah.
On the last page, I didn't understand one thing.
Yeah.
Do you mind to go back? Yes.
Yeah.
The second one. No. Encryption.
Yeah.
Second one. Yeah, I didn't understand that one.
Encryption. Yeah. I gave an example. If you are sending the one message, if I told you, for example, if you have to send name Faisal, Faizul, okay, and if you want to encrypt it, yeah, then you need to add, for example, this is one kind of the concept, add 2 characters into every character of Faisal. If I, for example, if you go in sequence, FGH, ABCDEFGH. So if I ask you that,
change the words so someone else, if you want to hack, they don't understand it.
Yeah, one thing that they don't understand, and another thing that once you transmit the key, yeah, and every key after the decryption, yeah, there shouldn't be any mismatch. It is not only the way when you add only, but you make a mathematical calculation into every data, that for example after every uh, second character you are changing the key as well. Yeah, so it's a pure encryption is the subject, but superficially when you want to encrypt, then you should have some technique. And obviously for example, if you are using a password, you must have seen that in the password selection they give you sometime the option previous that okay, use uh, lowercase, use uppercase. If you are using the only lowercase, then the possibility is that hacker will only need to attempt the lower cases. But if it is the lowercase and uppercase, then hacker will need to increase the number of attempts. And if you are using the any special keys, and if you are including the numbers, then assume that how many number of attempts the hackers will need to try the combinations. So literally, for example, if you are creating your password based on the 8 characters, then that 8 characters password can be hacked definitely, but after 20 years. Yeah, after 20 years you can definitely get the match and can try. But again, for example, if you are doing the internet banking, yeah, and if the hacker wanted to try the number of passwords 20,000, let's say 20 million or 200 million or 2,000 million times, then obviously the bank will not allow them to uh, you know get the trials on their server. So that's about the encryption, and you can further, there's lots of stuff on the internet. You can go ahead, on the internet.
I got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Now, apart from the database security, there are two terms, LAMP and WAMP. So let me show you what it is. Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. Have you heard about the web hosting?
Yes, I heard about a web hosting.
Okay, so can you explain how the web hosting works?
I cannot explain to you how it's work, but as far I know that the web hosting is where you can allocate all your data by the remote desktop service.
Say again.
As far I know, that is web hosting means what the place that you can, save your all the data and everything by the remote desktop service. And the operating system sometimes based in Linux and sometimes based in Windows. These two things, that I know.
Web hosting means web. Web means your website hosted.
Yeah.
Your website can be hosted on any computer, yeah, but the different web hosting companies provide the servers so that they should run 24 hours in a day, and your website should be hosted. Yeah.
Okay. So you mean that I can host my website information on my computer also if I run this computer 24/7?
Yes. Excuse me. Yeah. You can run your website from your computer as well. Yeah, but you will have to run your computer 24 hours, number one. Number two, in order to run your website, you need a server. Yeah, a server which should request, which should serve the client request through the URL. Let's say if you say http:// and / www.faisal.com. Yeah. Then HTTP request is given to the web server, and then in the response of the request, a web page created in the HTML file is displayed on the browser. Yeah. So you need what? The web server. Web server can be, let's say, MySQL server. Sorry, the Apache is one kind of a server. Servlets is one kind of server. There are more number of servers available on the internet. Which
Can I
you
ask one question?
Yeah.
Basically, okay, you can answer this question later if you want. That is, how is servers work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So your next unit, web-based development, is your unit. So
Okay.
probably we can start, very soon that unit, so that we can formally start that one, as well as your understanding will also be cleared. Yeah.
Okay.
So over here in the database, literally you are not going to use this, but definitely in the web-based development. So maybe not only the answer that how the web server is deployed, but we can practically deploy. Yeah.
So,
So
Mrs. Subra, but we can make it database, our local networking service, and we can make it database also the online base by the
yeah,
website.
yeah,
So its database can be offline and can be online, isn't it? That you mean?
yeah, definitely, yeah.
Okay. If it's offline, then is SQL, I mean like SSL or SQL, or if it's like online based, then it comes to the Linux, Apache, and MySQL, and also PHP
No,
based.
no. You
Okay.
remember that in the database
Huh.
there are 3 levels.
Okay.
Yeah. Like when you talk about the levels of the database, then
Huh.
do you remember that physical level, logical level?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the user level can be any. Yeah. It can
Okay.
be a computer sitting on the without network, or if you are using on the internet. Yeah. So perhaps these concept might be cleared later on. Let me go ahead with this simple thing, that for running a server, yeah,
Huh.
running a website, you need
Okay.
a server, let's say Apache server, and you need a database, which is MySQL is also a kind of server. You need a
Okay.
programming language like a PHP. So
Mhm.
LAMP is the framework,
Yeah.
combined
Okay.
framework, which works on the Linux. Yeah. And using this, you can create your application, the web application, which would give you the web interface, the web server interface, scripting and database features. While the other one is based on the Windows, which works on the Windows. It uses the Apache, MySQL, PHP again. So you can further, we will explore these 2 types of the frameworks into the unit web-based development.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Subra. Hello?
Hello.
Mr. Subra, we can't hear you.
Mr. Subro, we couldn't hear you. Hello? Hello, Mr.
Hello.
Subro.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah, I think your line is bad. We couldn't hear you properly.
Okay. Now I think it's better.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So,
Subro, which server is more secure, Linux or Windows?
depends on the security feature implemented.
Then why people are prefer every time to the Linux?
The reason is that Linux is a free framework.
I think Windows also the free framework.
No, Windows is not the free framework.
Okay.
Windows has to be purchased. Linux is a free framework.
That anyone can make it. Like I can also make it a Linux server if I want.
Yeah.
Okay.
So next topic, you can you can get very much interesting topic on the YouTube, in the internet, in the web pages about the WAMP and these servers. But definitely, according to the syllabus of the web-based development, I would be trying to cover those topics.
Okay, no problem.
Graphic
Yeah.
user interface.
Graphic.
For example, if you are accessing the data, if you are viewing the data of the database, let's say into this table. Yeah. So the data, for example, this this is the data table. So this has been displayed into the web browser. Yeah, and this could be displayed into the form anywhere else. So you need a graphical user interface for your database. Now, testing of the database.
Why it is important to graphical design interface?
Say again.
Why the graphical design interface is important?
Because you are presenting the data to the user. Yeah, if you have a good database and the graphical user interface, then your software is useful. If it is not good user interface, then it's not useful. Okay.
All right.
So you have to test the database as well. For testing the database, you should have some plans to test the database.
How do you test the database?
Yeah, these are the next slides for testing the database. So apart from the testing plans, there are certain database components, extreme data, and error handling. Let me give you sorry, my mouse is so testing. Database testing includes the performing the data validity, data integrity testing, performance check related to the database, testing of procedures, triggers, functions in the database. So are you clear what is meant by the database testing?
Not really.
Not me as well.
Obviously, is your database reliable? Is data stored is safe? It is not crashed whenever you do any transaction. Yeah, then is it 100% saved? And is it sufficient to support the number of queries? For example, at one time, if you have a website, can 200 million people watch your website, can browse your website? Yeah, so all these concerns come into the testing regarding everyone. If you are claiming that your database is perfect, yeah, then how that database is perfect? So it means examining the database. Yeah, if, for example, if you are saying you are perfect, you should be given the level certificate right now, then how you will be, the assessing the database. Makes sense? So obviously, testing the database, you need some strategies. It deals with tables. For example, if I say that how the structure of the database is, good, then you need to check the tables, columns, are they okay? If you want to check the functionality of the database, then perhaps you could run all the functionalities of the database or each and every function. For example, inserting the database, you will need to check that are you able to insert the every kind of data into the database. That makes a sense. There is another non-functional testing, that, for example, load testing. One is the direct testing and another is called the non-direct testing or functional testing. If you say, for example, there is a car, if you want to test is the car okay in the gear 1, is the car okay in the gear 2, is the car okay in the gear 3, for example, okay, yes, the gear system is fine, but you will realize that is the car really running smooth and up to that much speed, then that is the functional and non-functional testing. Yeah. So non-functional testing is load testing, risk testing in the database, stress testing on the database. For example, if your database is okay, implemented, is well, but if the system is not good, then the database itself will be fine, but the functional requirement will be compromised. So remember these things, that functional database, the database or any software to those components, while the non-functional testing is a quality of the database. The quality is achieved through, let's say, giving the load on the database, risky, let's say, security wise, and other features. So remember, functional and non-functional.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are more, the definitions I have written here, they are very much clear, very easy to understand, and you will be able to go through each and every definitions with, line by line. But let me try to, go to the length of the document first. So testing, is it clear? For example, if you are checking, if you have made a database, if you have made a, the software, then you need to do the functional testing, which is performed keeping in mind an end user point of view, that it is it is doing each and every function of the software or the database, which can be any transaction, any operations run by the end user to meet any business specification or whatever the needs. Then again, in the functional testing, there is a black box testing and white box testing. Black box testing involves verifying the integration of the database to check its functionality. For example, if you want to check the database, if you want to test the database or software as a black box testing, then you are doing the testing as a whole. If you want to do the white box testing, then you are testing each and every component into detail. This is the pure software engineering computer science terms. White box testing, black box testing, we can further explore into the system development. These terms will be repeated in all units, but you just remember, if you wanted to test the system as a whole, for example, if you did all the options and then wanted to test, then superficial testing, the integrated testing of the whole system will be black box. I mean, it's a black in front of you. What is inside? You are not testing. But if you are doing the white box testing, it means you are putting a torch, light, LED onto each and every internal structure of the machine. For example, if you have a washing machine, yeah, or if you have a car, if the car is taking you from Manchester to London, yeah, if you counted the time, then okay, it took about for example 3 hours to reach you to London. But if you wanted to check that how the car was efficient, how fuel it took, how engine oil it took, how was the speed, then it is the white box testing. Yeah. So I already explained the non-functional testing. You could do the load testing for the non-functional testing. Components of the database is the next topic. For example, after the testing, database components, and the component can be table, queries that you create, that how the database will be queried, forms. The forms, the data will be displayed to the user either in the form of web browser or in user forms. The form is the window-based forms in the form of reports, in the form of pages, in the form of macros, modules. These are the functions that have a specific. So what is module? What is macro? These are the components within the programming. Then there is extreme data. Extreme data means the limit of the data. For example, if you wanted to test the data, you can do with the normal values. For example, if the database has a capacity to store the 10,000 records, then probably you could test it with 500. But if you wanted to test the database with, let's say, exact 10,000 records, then you will realize that whether is it feasible or not. For example, if the car has been made to run at the speed of 160 miles per hour, yeah, then normally you test the car at 100 speed, yeah, 100 miles per hour. But if you wanted to run the car exactly at 150 miles per hour, then that would be called as extreme data, that how the system will perform on the extreme data. That's the limit. Using the limit for testing the data is called the extreme data for testing purpose. Then next is error handling. Obviously, your database should be able to handle the error handling. For example, if you are entering the number and entering the name in the field of number, then obviously the database should have the capability to handle the error. So that's it. We are done. And like error handling, extreme data, database components, testing plans.
Mr. Super, can I see the last page again? Sorry.
Yeah.
The page before the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the number 34. Yeah. No.
So this is
Yeah, this one. Yes.
Second. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's 36 then.
Sorry.
Page number 36.
Okay. Extreme data. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. So I gave you the concept that if the car has been made for the 150 miles per hour, yeah. So if you are really testing the car at 150 miles per hour, it means you are using the extreme data, yeah, to check really that how it is going. So far, within these learning outcomes 1, 2, and 3, we have to explore further the WAMP and LAMP, the servers, frameworks, and you also need to run the SQL. So if you go to the Google, let's say SQL editor on W3 School, then you will be able to execute these commands online, right? So
Okay.
you can see number of SQL commands online. You can follow a book as well. So let me close the recording here, and then I can give you more tips that how you can do.